Tuesday, November 21st, 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the TBD College Football Show with your hosts. I'm Mason.
I'm Joey.
I'm Isaac.
Welcome to this episode. This is the Week 13 preview, guys. The season is almost over. Just want to say a quick, how about them freaking dogs, Go Dogs. Got the win over Tennessee. Go Tigers for Joey. Got the win over a hard-fought, really classic game over Pittsburgh, at Pittsburgh. And sadly, the other fake Tigers apparently lost to Florida in the swamp. So sorry, Isaac. We are going to get started with our pick records very quickly for those of you who are following along at home. In third place, we have Joey, who is 6 games back. He went 4-1 last week. Had it not been for K-State dropping one, he would have went 5-0. He's now overall 37-28. In second place, we have myself. I went 3-2 in Week 12. I told the Georgia Bulldogs I wasn't picking them. Well, that was a mistake. My overall is now 39-21, and I'm 4 games back. And, of course, in first place, we have our man Isaac, who went 4-1 in Week 12, also picked K-State, and would have went 5-0 as well. He is now an overall of 43-22. So, come back next week. We have a rivalry week speed round. It's going to be a good time, and that is a place where we could all drop or increase our pick records. So come back. Best picks of the week. First of all, Isaac and Joey picking Georgia over Tennessee. Guys, what went into your thought process here? Because a lot of people did not think Georgia could win this game. I did not think that they could win the game. However, I did not, and I told them I needed it. Not that they had to prove anything to me, because I'm just Mason Malone in Charleston, South Carolina. But I said that I was not going to pick them until they proved it to me, and they proved it. So what did it for you guys, though?
For me, it was just home field advantage. I really think that's what sold it for me. Also, I think that a young backfield at Tennessee with I don't even want to try and pronounce his last name, but a young backfield Yama Leava. Yeah, with him back there, I think he's a great quarterback. Even while we were watching the game, I was saying he's 10 times better than a Joe Milton. But he's just not there yet. There were points where he was staring down his receivers, and that's really what, sold the game later on. Georgia started picking up on it, like I said in the last episode, and, that's just what I saw.
As for me, I'll say this. I did place a little bet on Tennessee. I lost, obviously, just a couple dollars, no big deal. But I just want to see the upset. But I went with Georgia because it was in Athens, and historically, Georgia, they bounce back. They just do. They've lost to Alabama. The very next week, I'll be honest, I forgot who they played, but I know that they won. Like, they've historically been a really good team in the past few years, and I was like, it's in Athens, it's a Saturday night game. They're not going to let Tennessee – they're not going to have lost to Alabama and let Tennessee beat them and Alabama in the same season. Like, playing the law of transitive property, of course, but I really, really thought Georgia had the best chance of it being a home game. They bounced back. They played really well. They shut down Tennessee the second half, and so they're back in the CFP race. So good for the Dogs.
Yes, man, go Dogs. I'm glad we won, but I'm not going to lie to you. When Tennessee went up 10-0, I was like, uh-oh. Looks like my pick is going to be correct. This is not good. And then, of course, we come back. And the tight ends, man, how about them, dude? Oscar Delp, Lawson Lucky, and Ben Urosic, man. They all played a great freaking game. It's kind of like, man, and Carson Beck, man, using his legs. How about it? It's like, why don't we scheme this more often? Scheme the tight ends, scheme the running quarterback. Carson Beck has wheels. He can use them if he wants to. So I think that comes down to Mike Bobo, which once again I think is a problem. Next game up, we have a couple games we want to talk about real quick. We all picked Clemson over Pitt, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Pitt was in this thing for a second. This is an instant classic. We went back and forth constantly. Obviously, Clemson did end up pulling out the win with the 65-yard Cade Klubnik touchdown run. Ran right up the middle. Looked like he was about to just get caught and just broke it all the way down the sideline for a touchdown to put them up 34-30. Pitt would not be able to get anything together with under a minute left in the game, and they would end up winning. I picked Clemson just because I thought they had the better defense. Pitt obviously had the home field advantage, but they lost some games this year to teams that just were not that good. And you know what, Joe? You made a point last week I wanted to address. You said that Pitt does not play well when Desmond Reed does not play well. But he actually did play pretty good. This game just came down to who the better team was and who could outlast the other, and it just ended up being the Clemson Tigers.
So there's one thing I will say. I think both teams played very well. I don't think it came down to who was the better team. I think it came down to who had Cade Klubnik. Because as we all know, Cade Klubnik is still in this. So, Cade Klubnik, big play at the end of the game. He has matured entirely this season. He's one of the, like I said last episode, one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. I won't say he is the best because I know that's not true, but he is up there. The team overall isn't playing that well. Offensive play calls isn't going very well all of a sudden. But our defense stepped up, gave up some iffy here and there's, but when we needed it most, Cade stepped up and, ended the game, sealed the game. And when it was looking really, really dark, I think Pitt had a 99% chance of winning, and then Cade went on a run. So, thank goodness we had Cade.
And, they had, I think, 11 yards total rushing through the fourth quarter, 8, something like that, through the fourth quarter. And then they ended up with 86 yards because of that touchdown run by Cade Klubnik. Isaac, why did you pick Clemson?
Well, I made the mistake of going all in on Pitt. Excuse me. I made the mistake of going all in on Pitt a couple weeks ago against SMU. Pitt had been playing really well. I picked Syracuse.
To be fair, we all made that mistake.
That's true. But, a couple weeks before that, I was like, Syracuse is going to beat Pitt. Well, then Pitt destroyed Syracuse. And so then I picked Pitt the following week to beat SMU. Well, they got throttled. I was like, you know what? These Panthers, they're like the Carolina Panthers. I'm not about to pick these guys. They keep blowing it. And Clemson came out with a win. And you add in the fact that it's Dabo Swinney and Clemson. You can talk about a down year. You can talk about the portal, whatever it is. But Clemson is still Clemson. And so until proven otherwise, they're going to win the games. And it was a big ACC win for them. And Cade Klubnik, he's still in it. So it's a good game.
And I truly believe that there is a way to not sacrifice your views and your beliefs and still, adapt to the transfer portal. And I still think that Clemson needs to utilize it, especially in the kicking department, because that's really what they've had a lot of trouble on. And don't get me wrong, Hoosier's been a lot better than their last couple kickers. However, this is something that, they really need to improve upon. Moving on to our last game that we're going to talk about real quick. Once again, we all TBD triple picked South Carolina to beat Missouri. That was probably our best pick of the week. South Carolina, they get out to a 21-6 lead, come out in the half. They give up, 15 straight points and go down 22-21. And then in an instant classic, 2 touchdowns are scored one touchdown each. The 2 touchdowns total scored in the last 70 seconds of the game. And it was electric. It was an electric atmosphere. We weren't there. I wish we could have been, but some idiot was getting married this week and we had to be there for his rehearsal dinner. But it was still overall a great game. Joey, I not to skip you, Isaac, but I do want to start with you again. Joey, this is the second time in 2 weeks that you've picked South Carolina to beat. This is more than you've picked South Carolina ever in the history of this show. Tell us a little bit about your pick, why you picked South Carolina over Missouri.
I'm going to be honest. That defense is really, really good. And I guess the offense is starting to put it together. At the beginning of the season, I was not sold on Sellers. No pun intended there. But he's really come to. He's still immature in some aspects, but his throwing has improved a ton. And the run has still been incredible. Now, with this Missouri game, I really thought Missouri was going to win. And honestly, I was back and forth. I was like, I know I picked South Carolina, but man, would it be nice to see them lose? And then it was just back and forth. But yeah, it was a good game. But I honestly think I just picked South Carolina because Missouri shouldn't be ranked.
I wanted to talk really quick about, you said the defense is really good at South Carolina. Well, I want to say this too. I'm not really sure what points this led to, but I know that South Carolina went for it on 4th and 1 twice in Missouri territory, didn't get it, gave the ball back over to Missouri, and I think the points ended up in a field goal and 1 touchdown, which the touchdown's not good, but being able to force a field goal inside, the opponent's 30, in that starting position is really good. Isaac, what about you for South Carolina? Picking South Carolina over Missouri.
So, for much of the same reason as Joey wrapped up with, I don't think Missouri should be ranked, but South Carolina is a team who, again, they should have beaten LSU. We could talk about the pick sixes being called back, but let's just get real. LSU, the catch to put us in position for the game-winning or the game-tying touchdown, I think it was, or the go-ahead touchdown at the end of the game with Kyron Lacey inside the 5. He didn't survive the ground. It wasn't a catch. So the refs gave us that game. We should have lost South Carolina. South Carolina should have beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. They got handled by Ole Miss, but there again, they throttled A&M. They should have beat us. Close with Alabama. South Carolina's played a great season to this point. They've put in a lot of work against a lot of quality teams. Should have more quality wins than they do. So with that said, based on past performance, I was like, you know what? I've got the Cox in this one. So I was going with South Carolina. And anyway, so yes, I thought South Carolina had the best shot, and Mizzou, they jumped them up in the rankings, and I don't know what that's about, but yeah, Mizzou's still not good. Mid-Zoo, as we've called them. But yeah.
Mid-Zoo. Guys, I also picked South Carolina because I thought, just like Joey said, they've been the hot team right now. They came out and won against a really good Texas A&M team at home, went to Vanderbilt, beat a really gritty Vanderbilt team, and then came home and, they beat Missouri, who's a top-ranked team. Now, should they be a top-ranked team? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know, and I don't understand the committee's decision to drop them. Is Missouri really that good of a team? Again, 2 losses before South Carolina in the SEC to top 10 SEC teams with a combined, I think, 150 to 10, which is not good. So, yes, continuing on mid-Zoo. Now we're going to pick the biggest games in college football this week. We're going to try to do it a little bit quick. However, we are going to get into our favorite segment, starting out with the game of the week. Isaac, why don't you tell the folks what our game of the week is?
Folks, this is the one that I think we've all been excited for well over a month now. Our game of the week for Week 13 is 5th-ranked Indiana traveling to Columbus, Ohio, to face number 2-ranked Ohio State at 12 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. The ESPN FPI has the Buckeyes at 73%, and the spread has the Buckeyes by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, 2 touchdowns here. I don't know. This is going to be really interesting. Ohio State, it looked like they were going to struggle a little bit early against Northwestern. Went down 7, ended up outscoring them 31-0 the rest of the way, getting the 31-7 win. Indiana, they're still undefeated. They're coming off a bye week. Before that, they beat Michigan at home 20-15. That was the really big brand win that we all said that they needed. This one's really tough. I'm not picking yet, but I'm just saying I can tell this one's all going to be really tough to pick. We've seen Ohio State go back and forth this year, struggled with Nebraska at home. But Indiana, their biggest team that they really faced, they've played all bottom 6 of the Big Ten. The best team that they've played so far in the Big Ten is Michigan. So now they've got a true test, right? This is Ryan Day. His back is officially up against the wall here. OSU, they have to get this win to get a rematch with Oregon in the Big Ten championship. If OSU loses, the question has to be asked, is that going to knock them out of the playoff? Because their strength of schedule is awful. They played like 4 group of 5 teams to start the season. Maybe 1 FCS team. Didn't play a Big Ten opponent till week 5 against Michigan State. They didn't really play anybody. And then, who's their biggest win this year? Nebraska? They haven't, because they lost to Oregon on the road. Now it was a close game, to be fair, and they lost it in a horrible way. But Oregon missed some field goals. There were some points there in that game that could have been added on to what it was. It could have been a bigger win for Oregon. However, we'll see what happens. Indiana, this is a crazy stat. I just wanted to point this out. Indiana has not beaten Ohio State since 1988, and they have not beaten them at Ohio Stadium since 1987. It's been almost 40 years since they've beat them, guys, or almost 50 years, excuse me. Kurt Cignetti, the head coach of Indiana, he seems to have his team on track, but is he the one to finally break the curse? Isaac, you said that it was, your favorite, or not your favorite game, but the game you've been looking forward to for a month. You're going to start us off. Sorry, buddy. Hard pick, but you're going first. Who you got?
Man, I really, 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 I literally all last week I was like, I hope to God I'm not going first.
Guys, we have a
in this
rotation.
game.
It goes. This is just how it is. It's not like I just picked Isaac. This is how it goes.
Oh,
whoever
man.
picked first last week, he just goes in the rotation. Me, Joey, Isaac, and he's just the first one. So go ahead,
Folks,
dude.
folks, you just saw me learn something on this show. I did not know that's the way that it worked. I just thought it was at random. So, with that said, man, I'm gonna be honest. Everything about me wants to pick Ohio State. They barely beat. Listen, they didn't beat Penn State. Penn State lost that game. They barely beat Nebraska. It's in Columbus, if you will. I really do not like these guys. I definitely think Indiana covers. And you know what? I'm gonna take Indiana to win this game. Give me the Hoosiers on a Saturday in Columbus. It's an 11-0 start to this point, or a 10-0 start to this point for Indiana. Give me win number 11 for the Hoosiers. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But there's no way in good faith I can hope Ohio State wins this game. I need Indiana. Give me the Hoosiers.
There's some good faith in that pick there, buddy. Well, I got to say, man, Indiana, they have definitely been going on a tear here. Ohio State, they haven't. I mean, they seem to kind of gotten back on the horse, but something we've been saying all season is we can't really tell where their offensive identity is. They've got Emeka Ibuka at wide receiver. They've also got Jeremiah Smith, but they also have one of the arguably best running backs in college football, a running back that was so good in NCAA, Judkins, that they had to ban him in the professional gaming league because he was just so OP, right? But Ohio State, it's just been back and forth. It's like, where does their offensive identity lie? Are they actually beating good teams? Because their schedule is really soft. Indiana, on the other hand, they also have a really soft schedule, which makes this game so tough to pick. Last time I picked against Indiana, I picked Michigan, and I was wrong. And sorry to say, I'm going to do the same thing this time. I am going to go with Ohio State here. It's at their stadium. I 100% believe that Indiana can win this game. Like Isaac, I do not want to pull for those jokers. I don't have a choice, though. I have to go with Ohio State here. I just think that Ryan Day with his back against the wall, and I do not trust Ryan Day, so I am not trusting this pick. But I don't know much about Kurt Signetti either. But I know that Ryan Day can win some big games during the regular season. It's the playoffs when he really chokes. When it comes to Michigan next week, we'll see what happens. However, I am going to have to go with Ohio State in this one.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of hard to follow that up. I think really it comes down to home field advantage. I think also that Ohio State is slowly starting to figure out their offensive identity. Passing, it was working out at the beginning, but really they found something in the run game, and it opens up their pass game very well, where they have a lot of talented receivers. Indiana, this is going to be a true, test. This is going to be their first actual matchup where it's like, you win this, then you're legit. But if you lose it, it doesn't look bad on them, but I know they'll drop far. I'm going to go ahead and pick Ohio State. Home field advantage is big, and I think they just out-talent Indiana.
And the question has to be asked, too, if Indiana loses this game, are they going to make the playoffs? Because, like I said, they have no big wins now. It's like Michigan is not a big win. It's a branded win, but is it that big of a win with a 4-loss team, possibly eventually a 5-loss team, maybe to Ohio State? We'll have to see, guys. But I can tell you right now, none of us are going to be pulling for Ohio State. I can definitely tell you that right now.
All right, folks, going to take us into our next game of Week 13, which this one for me is a battle of disgust, okay? We have Ole Miss traveling to the Swamp on Saturday afternoon, where LSU basically should have just left on Saturday night, should have just packed up, not even showed up apparently. But we've got the Gators hosting the Rebels at 12 p.m. on Saturday afternoon in Gainesville. The ESPN FPI has Ole Miss at 78%, and the spread has Ole Miss by 10.5. So this one will be fun. I'm excited to see how this one shapes out. This is Ole Miss' last true test as they play Florida this week, and Mississippi State next week, who they've been really, really, really bad this year, in the Egg Bowl during Thanksgiving on rivalry week next week. Florida is unfortunate they didn't get the Rebels off a bye week. However, they did just beat LSU on Saturday night, and so they get Ole Miss now to follow up in the Swamp this Saturday at 12 p.m. So here's something to think about. Florida is 3-1 in games where DJ Lagway has started and finished the game. We know that Ole Miss has weaknesses, but will the Gators be able to exploit them? This game has trap game written all over it, especially for for really both teams, because Florida is going to face a struggling Florida State team next week in the Battle of the Sunshine State. So, with that said, right back at you, Mason. I'm not going first. Who you got?
I think this game actually does have trap game written all over it. I think that Florida with DJ Lagway, Florida without DJ Lagway is cheeks. However, Florida with DJ Lagway is really good. I think that if he had stayed in the game, I'm not kidding, Florida may have gotten a win over Georgia. If he stays in the game, he was playing that good a ball, and our defense was not playing well until like the end of the fourth quarter. Maybe we would have come away with it, but it would not have been by 14. DJ Lagway is a star. Ole Miss, however, Jackson Dart, he's a great quarterback. Their defense plays well. They can get their receivers open in space. So my big question is that Florida defense. Now, they definitely do have the home field advantage here. Just ask LSU. Now, LSU is nowhere near as good as Ole Miss, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to take the Florida Gators in the swamp this week to take down Ole Miss. I know that that's a crazy pick, but and some people might call me crazy for it, but it may not be that crazy. You may see the Gators and Billy Napier take down Lane Kiffin. That's just the way the SEC has been this year. We beat up on each other, man. And you never know who's going to beat. You think that anybody on this podcast or on this show would have picked Vandy to beat Alabama in week 5 or week 6? Heck no. None of us. Not a single one of us. Things in the SEC have been crazy this year. I think Florida's getting hot at the right time. Ole Miss coming off a bye could spell trouble, but maybe not, because this is their last real game before that. So they're putting all their eggs into this one basket. Get it? Because the Egg Bowl's next week. But I do have Florida in this one.
Yeah, I can't agree with that. I got to go Ole Miss. I think Florida, they had a good game against LSU, but I think Ole Miss is definitely a better team than LSU. They're kind of a little more on the hot side right now, with more talent than Florida. Yes, it's at Florida. It's going to be a tough game. Don't get me wrong. I don't think they're going to cover, but I still have Ole Miss winning this.
So Florida has a chance to take Billy Napier from the hot seat to the golden chair, okay? Because just 4 weeks ago, we had LSU talking about, we've got Brian Kelly. Aren't we glad we didn't get Billy Napier? Billy Napier is trash, blah, 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 blah. Well, all I know is that last week, which I guess now would be 2 weeks ago, the Florida Athletic Administration looked at Napier and said, we've got you. You're our guy. We're going to stick with you. Well, that guy just beat the other guy, who is Brian Kelly. With that said, this is a tough pick. I am also going to take this is tough. I'm going to take the Rebels to win this game, but I do think Florida covers. Florida has a great chance to win this game. It's a one-score game either way. I think Ole Miss probably by 3. Florida very well could win this game. I'm not confident in this pick at all. I think they cover. I think Florida covers the spread, but I do think Ole Miss leaves Gainesville with a win. But if not, Florida State's going to make Billy Napier a very happy man the next 2 weeks. They should beat the Seminoles in 2 weeks after this. So, with that said.
Our next matchup is number 14 BYU versus number 21 Arizona State at 3:30 p.m. ESPN FPI has Arizona State with a 56% chance to win this game, and the spread going in Arizona State's favor by 3. BYU coming off a tough loss just this past weekend. Meanwhile, Arizona State coming off a big win. Will BYU Cougars be mad and try and get revenge for their loss, or will Arizona State be the hot team rolling off the momentum? For some reason, I am also the first to pick this game. So, to be completely honest with you, I think it was a great win by Arizona State. But it's tough. That's their first legitimate win. I would be very interested to see if they can beat BYU. But I do think BYU is coming into this game a little upset, a little mad. So I am going to go ahead and pick BYU to actually win this game, but by a very close margin.
So this one, I did not expect to have any kind of trouble picking this game because, up to this point, I've been all about the Stormin' Mormons, the Cougars from Provo. Okay, now with that said, where we're at now, they did just lose to Kansas. Arizona State, no, they blew out Kansas State in Manhattan last week. I think BYU comes in upset. Arizona State's a really good team, but I am going to go with the Cougars in this one. I'm a little bit hesitant on this pick, but I am going to take BYU to cover the spread, probably by 3, maybe by a touchdown. But BYU's got a lot of close games here in the past few weeks. They've kind of squeaked out several of them, most notably against Utah, and the luck kind of ran out against Kansas. But I am going to go with the Cougars in this game. But Arizona State very well could play upset, but I've got the Cougars on Saturday.
Man, this is a really tough one because just like you guys said, not to reiterate it again for the third time, but this one is at Arizona State. They did go and they did get a big win. Guys, I want you to remember that BYU, they beat SMU all the way back in like week 3, I think. SMU's turned out to be a really tough team. Arizona State has some really bad losses, but BYU, on the other hand, they're gonna, just like I said about Kansas State earlier in the year, they're gonna get beat by a team they should not have gotten beat by, probably with all the talent they have, and they're going to come out and they're going to be playing off of that. But meanwhile, Arizona State is going to be playing off of, we have a legitimate shot here to do something that we haven't done before, which is make the playoffs, with them being at 21. I mean, really, guys, any team in the top 25 right now has a chance to make it. If you get to more than 3 losses, and you would have to have something incredible happen. However, I am going to go with you guys. I'm going to pick BYU. I am going to take Arizona State to cover here, and I really am leaning Arizona State. But, man, I just think that BYU, they've got a really good football team that gels really well, and I think that they play on the road well, and I think that they're going to go, and I think they're going to get this win against Arizona State this week. And last week, it said the same thing about Kansas State, and that did not happen. So we may go TBD triple pick here and end up absolutely losing it. However, we are going TBD triple pick on BYU over Arizona State.
All right, folks, this is going to take us into our 4th game of Week 13 here. We're going to have 19th ranked Army, the Black Knights from West Point, traveling to South Bend, Indiana to face 6th ranked Notre Dame in a primetime game on Saturday night at 7 p.m. The ESPN FPI has Notre Dame at 88% chance to win, and the spread is in Notre Dame's favor at 18.5. This game, I have a feeling, is going to end up very similar to the Notre Dame and Navy game. No disrespect to Army, I know they've got a decent defense. So did Navy, but we saw Tulane just throttle them. Notre Dame did it just a few weeks ago. I made the mistake of going with the Goats in that one. I don't have the Knights in this one. Give me the Irish. I like Notre Dame to cover. I think they'll probably win it by at least 3 touchdowns. I hate to go against the servicemen, but, man, Notre Dame, their offense, their defense, the Service Academies, just they haven't had it to hang with them this year. I've got the Irish on Saturday night in South Bend.
Now, I do want to respond to you, and because obviously I'm going to make my pick here, but I'm going to start by responding and saying Army is not the same caliber team that Navy is. I think that Army is a step above them. Now, I think that they're going to play Notre Dame much better than Navy did. I think that they're going to prepare well for this game, but this game, they don't have home field advantage like Navy had. However, there is this curse where a group of 5 schools that come to Notre Dame and somehow get the win. Now, that's usually only in week 2, right? And they're paying them like $1.5 million. So I will be picking Notre Dame here, and I 18.5 points is a lot, but I do think that Army will end up covering, but I'm picking Notre Dame to win this game. And the question you have to ask yourself, too, is with this game, if Army comes out and plays well and maybe even covers, do they get dropped all the way out? Because at that point, they would only have 1 loss. Or, are they going to treat it like Tulane, whose only 2 losses are to Power 5 teams, high ranked? Well, not really anymore, but because neither one of them are ranked because it was Oklahoma and Kansas State. But, that's their only 2 losses. Are they going to treat it like that? Or are they going to fall all the way out? That'll be a question for the committee next week. But I am picking Notre Dame here. Yeah,
I mean, it's hard not to pick Notre Dame here. I think, coming up to this week, I've kind of expressed already that I think Notre Dame's going to win this game. No offense to Army whatsoever. I just think that when it comes down to it, Notre Dame is the better team. We saw how they matched up against Navy, and yes, Army is a better team than Navy, but not that much better. And, being at Notre Dame, it's a tough environment. And I think Notre Dame, too, defensively, they're a little more talented and a little smarter on defense. So I think they'll be able to stop, Army's offense pretty easily.
Well, and I do want to respond quickly before we move on to our last game and just say that I think that Notre Dame is really only a South Bend is only a tough environment when Clemson plays there. We've seen NIU there. We've seen Marshall win there. The only time that I've really seen Notre Dame have an electric crowd is for a night game when Clemson comes to town. This one is a night game, so the atmosphere could be rocking. We'll see. However, I just wanted to say I do not think this is an unwinnable game for Army. If NIU can do it, I think that Army can come in and do it. They've been playing some good ball. However, I do think that the odds are in Notre Dame's favor. The sports bettors think so too. So that's where we are with that game. Guys, we have Bama versus Oklahoma at 7:30. We got number 7 Alabama. Yep, number 7 Alabama. High ranked, which is not where we thought they were going to be, versus Oklahoma at Gaylord Stadium. Coming into this game, ESPN FPI is Bama 81%, and the spread from ESPN Bet is Bama by 13.5. This is another one. You know, Alabama, they have struggled some on the road this year. They've got a couple good ones, but Oklahoma, they've been struggling. The one thing that's kind of kept them alive is their defense. They had a little bit of a identity issue offensively at quarterback. They were struggling between Gary Hawkins Jr. and Jackson Arnold, going back and forth between the two quarterbacks. They finally settled on Jackson Arnold, even after the poor performance at Tennessee and then the absolute miscue against Missouri just 2 weeks ago. So I'm not really sure. This game is going to be close, I think, than people think. I think this does have trap game written all over it too. I think that this is a game that Oklahoma absolutely can win. But this is going to be. I think this is going to be a good game. I think that this is really. I said last week or a couple weeks ago that I thought that LSU was the last chance for Bama to lose a third game. But you know what? It just might be Oklahoma. So I have to make my pick first here, just the way the rotation worked out. But like I've been saying, Bama on the road this season, they've lost twice. They lost at Vanderbilt and they lost at Tennessee, two extremely tough environments. And guys, Oklahoma's no different. We saw Tennessee go on the road there and absolutely destroy Oklahoma. We saw South Carolina do the same thing, but this is still a tough environment. I think they were still getting their footing under them. I think this one is tougher than you think, but unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to go Alabama here. I don't know. Thinking about covering, give me Alabama to win. Give me Oklahoma to cover. I think this is, like I said, a closer game than people are going to think. But I do have Alabama in this one. I think that the freshman running back over at Oklahoma is going to do work. This defense might give Jalen Milroe some problems. I really do think so. When they're really good at pressure, and when they bring good pressure against a not that great offensive line like Alabama has, it could cause some problems. But nonetheless, give me Alabama just based on talent.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree. I got Alabama in this one. I think that it comes down to the amount of talent on roster, and Alabama's just got more of that. I do think Oklahoma's got a good defense. They just haven't really been able to perform as well as they can, only because, their offense is just non-existent. But I don't think it's going to be a close one, but I don't think it's going to be a complete blowout like Missouri.
So this one's kind of a toss-up in terms of especially the spread. I am going to take Alabama to win this game. I'm going to keep that nice and simple. But given the fact that you have an Oklahoma team who the defense locked up really, really closely and beat Auburn at Jordan-Hare, and then you have the same team who played South Carolina just a couple of weeks later and got absolutely thumped. You don't know what you're going to get. I do like Oklahoma to cover the spread here. I don't think Alabama wins by 2 touchdowns. Probably by 10. Definitely a two-score game of some kind. But I do like Oklahoma to cover. Alabama to win this game, unfortunately, just based on talent and experience. And they've still got the Bama way. The Bama, I don't want to call it bias, but they're still Alabama for now at least.
Guys, we ended up getting, the rankings came out just on Tuesday. We actually ended up getting just one more top 25 matchup than we thought we were going to get. But nonetheless, this is going to be a fun one, guys. A fun weekend of college football. I will be traveling to Gatlinburg this Saturday for my honeymoon, so hopefully I'll be able to pull up some games on my phone and just listen while we're driving. But nonetheless, this is going to be a great Saturday of college football. There's so much, we've said this every week, but it's just crazy how much the playoff implications are for each and every team in the top 25 right now. In most years, it wouldn't be that. The playoff implications would really only be for the top 10, maybe top 12 teams trying to make their way into the playoff. But because of conference expansion and playoff expansion, how good the leagues are, the parity in college football, it's gotten so much more interesting this year. It's gotten so much more crazier this year. And really, I mean, dude, this thing for anybody in top 25 right now, I think it's kind of anyone's game. So we'll see what happens.
And always remember,
no matter what team you pull for, if you're on God's side, you're always on the winning team. Just know that there is a Father in heaven who loves you, who created you, and who wants to know you. The gospel, it can be summed up like this. The gospel is a Hebrew word that means good news, but it wasn't just any good news. It was the good news that they'd bring from the battlefield saying that the war had been won. And guys, this is what Jesus did for us, guys. Romans 6:32 says, for the wages of sin is death. What is a wage? It's something that we're owed. We are owed death for our sin because we all sinned against God, who is holy and separate, and his love and his justice requires the death of the sinner. But Jesus, in his love, God sent him to step in to take our place by dying on the cross, dying and shedding blood for us. And all we have to do in order to be saved is believe in that. And guys, he didn't just die. He rose from the grave 3 days later, and he's still living now. If you have any questions about that, you can always reach out about that. Send us a message on our Instagram or TikTok DMs. Leave us a message or a comment on this YouTube post if you're watching on YouTube, and we will always get back with you. We'd love to talk to you. We just want you guys to know that we've all struggled with things like pride and lust and addiction and anger and so many different things, and Jesus has set us free, and he's given us great community and great people around us in order to just bask in his love and worship him together and grow together and have fellowship and friendship. And if you ever have any questions about that, please do not hesitate to reach out. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe, like this video, share it with your friends. We'd love to get the gospel message out to more people, because we're just three dudes who love Jesus and love talking about college football. And, that'd be awesome if you do that. We thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
Later.